Okay, moving on. We just discussed Cuvier's catastrophism. Another French scientist, Lamarck, was among the first to suggest a mechanism that explained the diversity of living creatures that did not rely on religious scriptures. So Lamarck's idea wasn't right either, but he was getting closer. His hypothesis was the inheritance of acquired characteristics. So it was not correct, but the idea proposed that an organism's behavior could change its form and pass these changes to offspring. So I have to reiterate that this idea was not accurate, but it was one of the first explanations of biological diversity on Earth that did not rely on religious doctrine. So when I say that, an explanation of biological diversity, it means how did all the animals and plants and everything emerge or evolve? Why do we have so many different species and different kinds? What explains all that there is of life out there on Earth? So Lamarck proposed that an animal's behavior brought about changes in its form. For example, his idea was if a giraffe stretched its neck to reach leaves, then its neck would grow longer. Of course, that's not true. But again, Lamarck was the first to make a connection between organisms and the environments they inhabit. So don't forget, this is inaccurate, but Lamarck's idea was that if a short-necked ancestor of a giraffe kept stretching its neck, and each generation stretched and stretched, eventually the ancestor or the descendant of those giraffes would have a longer neck. Around the same time as Lamarck, British geologist Sir Charles Lyell developed a theory that explained all the variation in the Earth's surface. His theory was called uniformitarianism, which stated that certain changes in the Earth's surface are immediately observable, such as by erosion or earthquakes. Therefore, other changes in the Earth's surface have been caused by gradual processes over long periods of time. So uniformitarianism states that all processes that can be sculpting the Earth today, or that can be seen sculpting the Earth today, have operated throughout geologic time and will continue to operate in the future. His idea was correct, although the behavior of the Earth's crust has changed over time. There have been different levels of volcanic activity and crust formation over the history of Earth. So Lyell's theory was incompatible with religious concepts of a creation because the length of time required for uniformitarianism far exceeded the notion of a 6,000-year-old Earth. This idea of a 6,000-year-old Earth was based on James Ussher's chronological research of the Bible and was widely accepted by the Western world until the 19th century. Nevertheless, Lyell's uniformitarianism was accurate, and his writings contributed to the research and ideas of Charles Darwin. Lyell's work changed the framework within which scientists viewed the geological past. So basically, his idea helped us envision a much older Earth, and therefore created more almost space or more to work with as far as time goes, to where scholars could imagine things taking place over many more years than had previously been thought of the age of the Earth. So I've mentioned geologic time a couple times. Geologic time is basically the age of the Earth, and there are many different ages, eons, epochs, and they're all broken down into many different categories and periods of time. Here is an example of how we can see different periods of geologic time in the Earth's crust. Here's another example with hundreds of millions of years being represented here in the Grand Canyon in this graphic.